How does an automotive genius, creator of the legendary Pontiac GTO and the most futuristic car of his era, end up handcuffed in a Los Angeles hotel over a shipment of nearly 100 kilos of cocaine? The answer is neither addiction nor unchecked greed. It is a story of desperation, an FBI sting, and a trial that would test the limits of justice. His car, the DMC-12, would become immortal on the big screen, but on that October morning, John DeLorean was about to lose everything. On October 19, 1982, John DeLorean was a cornered man. That same day, his factory in Belfast was shutting its doors for good. He desperately needed $17 million to save his company. What he didn't know was that the road to that money would lead him straight into a trap. And most disturbing of all, the man who pulled him into it was not a drug trafficking kingpin. He was an FBI informant. James Hoffman was a convicted trafficker who, to reduce his sentence, became a collaborator with the FBI. FBI recordings captured long hours of conversations in which DeLorean discussed the details of the operation. But how did a visionary of the industry reach this point? To understand it, we have to go back to 60s Detroit. John Z. DeLorean was a young engineer with a vision. At General Motors, he became the father of the Pontiac GTO, the muscle car that defined an era. He gained fame, money, and the respect of the industry. But DeLorean wanted more. He dreamed of an ethical, safe, and radically different car. In 1975, he founded the DeLorean Motor Company. His project, a sports car made of stainless steel with gull-wing doors. The DMC-12 was presented as a revolutionary automobile, unpainted stainless steel body, gull-wing doors, and an angular design that looked like it came from another galaxy. However, beneath its stainless steel skin beat a French-origin V6 engine with barely 130 horsepower, well below what was expected for a sports car. Production delays and quality issues eroded the confidence of the press and the public. Manufacturing began in January 1981, with strong support from the British government, which invested a large amount of money to create jobs in a Northern Ireland battered by conflict. With a selling price of $25,000, twice that of a Chevrolet Corvette, the DMC-12 was out of reach for most buyers. But the delays and design flaws drove buyers away. In a United States mired in recession, a luxury stainless steel sports car was a hard luxury to justify. Of the ambitious sales projections, only about 9,000 units actually materialized. The dream was bleeding out. In 1982, the company was on the verge of collapse. $17 million separated him from bankruptcy. And it was then, in that moment of maximum vulnerability, that James Hoffman appeared. A convicted drug trafficker, an FBI informant who had negotiated leniency in exchange for setting a trap. On June 28, 1982, Hoffman contacted DeLorean with a supposed business opportunity. Weeks later, on July 11th, he secured a face-to-face meeting. He offered to connect him with investors willing to contribute $15 million in exchange for a 10% commission, $1.5 million, plus $300,000 for expenses. DeLorean listened. He was cornered. But soon he began to get suspicious. In a later meeting, Hoffman mentioned Colombian investors and spoke of an investment of $1.8 million from DeLorean to get a return of $30 million. The pieces didn't fit. DeLorean reached out to his corporate lawyer, Tom Kimmerly. The advice was clear: stall, buy time. However, the FBI had no intention of releasing the hook. As the defense would later argue, the agents resorted to coercion. They threatened DeLorean with harming his daughter if he backed out of the deal. A man who was only looking for legitimate investors found himself trapped in a circle of fear and surveillance. Every conversation was recorded. Every step, a step toward the cell. On the morning of October 19, 1982, DeLorean arrived at a Los Angeles hotel to close the deal. He believed he was about to save his company. Inside the room, FBI agents were waiting for him. The suitcase full of cocaine was already there. The agents showed him the briefcase packed with white bags. DeLorean, stunned, could barely react. The arrest was immediate. The handcuffs clicked shut in front of television cameras, and the image of a distraught DeLorean went around the world. The blow was twofold. That same day, the manufacturing plant in Northern Ireland was closing its doors. The empire he had dreamed of crumbled forever in a single day. The prosecution's accusation was devastating. It claimed DeLorean had conspired to bring 220 pounds of cocaine, nearly 100 kilos, into the United States, a quantity valued in the tens of millions of dollars. The FBI transcripts showed a man discussing commissions and amounts. For the prosecution, he was a budding drug trafficker who had found in drugs the solution to his debts. But the defense raised a more complex truth. DeLorean, his lawyers argued, was not a criminal. He was an industrialist looking for investors. He never intended to take part in an illegal business. He was pushed, manipulated, threatened. The government did not merely investigate a crime, it planted it, cultivated it, and harvested it. The case became a national debate about the limits of justice. How far can the state go to catch a citizen? Does the end justify the trap? During the trial, the defense played hours of recordings in which Hoffman and the agents could be heard pressuring DeLorean, even after he expressed doubts. The jury, made up of 12 citizens, deliberated for weeks before reaching a verdict. Even before the verdict, the court was already debating the limits of federal power. On March 22, 1983, a memorandum from the United States District Court for the Central District of California evaluated whether DeLorean's constitutional rights had been violated. And in 1984, the jury issued a verdict that resonated around the world: not guilty. Entrapment. The government had manufactured the crime and coerced the defendant into committing it. John DeLorean walked free, but the acquittal came too late. The DeLorean Motor Company was already dead. The Belfast plant had closed in December 1982, barely 2 months after the arrest. Production of the DMC-12 ceased. DeLorean's reputation was left in ruins. Although a jury found him innocent, the market and history condemned him. He never recovered. The DMC-12 survived in popular culture. Thanks to the Back to the Future saga, the gull-wing doors became a cinema icon, and the car turned into a cult object. But its creator withdrew from the public eye, burdened by lawsuits and shadows. In the years that followed, DeLorean faced numerous civil proceedings, though he was never convicted again. In business as in justice, the line between victim and guilty can depend on who tells the story. John DeLorean wanted to build the car of the future. He ended up being the protagonist of one of the darkest chapters in the automotive industry. He passed away in 2005 at the age of 80, remembered both for his genius and for his fall. The irony is bitter. The line between salvation and ruin was as thin as the stainless steel of his own car.